I made plenty of mistakes investing. One of the very, very good mistakes is somehow I managed to lose 110% of the stock. Haven't figured out how yet, but I did find it's a loss. And the really silly thing is, I knew Mike all this time, didn't ask him any questions. He's made plenty of money investing. Instead, I went to YouTube, which is what made us make this video, and they inspired us to talk about the top 5 mistakes new investors make. And funnily enough, number one is listening to the wrong people. Why do so many people listen to the wrong people, do you think? Why?
It astounds me, Moss. To me, it's confusing, but we do it. We can all fall in this trap. And if you've been investing for very long, you probably have done it. I call it proximity bias. Proximity, the word meaning how close you are to something. It seems like the closer we are to a person, the more access we have to that individual, the less likely we are to listen to their investing input. Whereas a person that we have no personal access to, such as one of the talking heads on TV or one of the managers of one of the giant financial companies says something, we'll be like, oh. So, number one, let's get away from proximity bias. Whether you know someone or not, that's not a factor. The factor is what can you learn? So, use the people you know well as a resource to ask, how did you do this? How did you get there? How can I get there? And ask those questions, because you're not going to ask the people on TV that. You don't have access to them. But don't assign the value of the advice based on how famous someone is.
And also, if it sounds very exciting, I've learned about investing, generally stay very, 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 very far away from it. Since investing is supposed to be the most boring activity in the world, which is one of the things that trap a lot of people, at least me.
There are so many quotes from famous investors over the centuries, going all the way back to like the 1400s. And they all boil down to this 2 ideas. Number one, investing should be about as exciting as watching paint dry. You've painted the wall, you have to wait for it to dry. Don't touch it, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah, true.
The other quote right along with that is, the money is not in the acting, the emotion, the excitement. The money is in the waiting. You bought the thing, you're waiting as it grows. So yes, emotions will absolutely get you killed in investing.
Number 2, not understanding relationships between money and your brain. And I think one of the very big things in this specific scenario is how our brains is hardwired from the caveman era to be very fearful of everything. Because it's better to be fearful of the saber-toothed tiger that's not there than the one that actually is there. At least that's the people that survived, I would say.
So yeah, our money and our brain, 2 very different concepts. And we get ourselves in a lot of trouble if we don't understand the relationship. The best book I've ever read on the topic, I require every client to read this book. It's by Jason Zweig, called Your Money and Your Brain. There'll be a link below. Go read it. Essentially, what happens with our brains are hardwired. We are born with this. It's something we can learn to control, but we can't get rid of it. It's there. Is what Moss just said. It's a survival instinct. And the biggest element of survival instinct is fear. Fear tells me, don't put my hand in the fire. I will get burned and it will hurt. So there's a fear of pain. That extends to investing. There's a huge fear of taking a loss. Most of us have that hardwired in our brains. What we need to do with that then is get it under control and think, all right, if I take a loss on something I bought, it will hurt. Yes. But if I don't invest at all, I'm taking a loss automatically, because the value of money doesn't go up. Money sitting in a cash account is not more valuable a year from now than it was when you put it in there. So you have to put your cash to work somewhere. So rolling that forward into how you would actually apply this concept I'm talking about, and we're going to talk specifically about recency bias. Recency bias is the brain's tendency to think that whatever happened most recently will continue to happen. An example of this were the 9/11 attacks on the United States. 9/11, Twin Towers came crashing down, there's turmoil everywhere. Recency bias kicked in the markets big time as people kept thinking, well, there was one big catastrophic unexpected event, drove the value of stocks down. There's going to be another one soon. The next big event like that wasn't for over 10 years later when the next one happened. Recency bias can cause us to not act in our investments when we should be because we're too afraid that something's going to happen. Another recency bias that we get into sometimes is when things are climbing and there's a big bull market, people think it's going to continue forever. But as John Templeton, the famous investor, said, bull markets die in euphoria. When everybody's high on stocks and everybody's excited and everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid and sniffing the helium, that's about the time you're going to get turned into a bull market. So don't expect the most recent thing that just happened to continue indefinitely.
Number 3, believing the myth. I don't even know what the myth is myself. Well, please do elaborate, Mike.
Thanks, Moss. There's a lot of different myths in investing, and there's far too many to discuss in this short video. I'm going to just take a very common one, which is the idea that you can use past pricing action on the stock to predict what the price is going to do in the future. You've heard this before in various ways on TV of the talking head looking at the stock chart and saying, well, the stock has historically done really well, so it should continue to do well. That's a myth. It's not true. The fact that something did well in the past does not mean it will do better in the future or worse. Instead of looking at it that way, what we want to look at it as, what were the conditions under which that stock did well? Who was running the company? What was the market like? What was their moat? All these factors we look at and say, are those conditions still the same? If those conditions are still the same, we have a reasonable idea it might continue to do well. But if things have changed in the conditions, we have to think about what that might mean for the price of the stock. So never just look at price by itself and say, oh, because this happened in the past, it'll continue to go this way, because that's simply not true most of the time. A bonus myth. This is my signal for editing.
You are just about to get cut off.
A bonus myth is the words, this time it's different. That has no place in your investing vocabulary. When you look at any asset, whether you're going to buy or sell, you have to look at what that's worth and what you think it's going to be worth in the future based on what you are able to learn about the asset. But never say to yourself, this time it's different because I magically know something nobody else knows. I'm going to make $1 zillion because nobody else is paying attention. Lots of people are paying attention. So get those words, this time is different, out of your head. There's an investing mistake that's been with us for centuries, and it's the mistake of investing in things that eat. When you think about investing in cattle herds or investing in other kinds of livestock or investing in racehorses or all sorts of things, what you've got to think about is this. Stop. I got a better example. Let's start over. One of the most famous investing mistakes of all time happened back in the days when people were really crazy for investing in racehorses. And this was a big mania, just like the other manias you've heard of, such as the Dutch Tulip Mania and the Enron Mania. Well, this was racehorses. And people were just crazy for investing in year-old racehorses, what they call yearlings, which is when horse trainers are starting to see where the big superstars are coming from. And so people would buy in to investment clubs or buying shares in these racehorses. And it was a 10-year program. So you would buy into this 1-year-old horse. That horse's value doesn't last 10 years. The horse's value is in how many races it can win and then how many other horses it can get paid to sire to try to pass those genes on. But here's the problem. If you're investing in a year-old racehorse, after a year, it's 2 years old now. It's not a year old anymore. but people didn't get out. They kept their money in these investments and they lost a lot of money doing that. So my personal motto is I don't invest in things that eat, whether they're horses, cows, ducks, or whatever.
Then the final mistake that a lot of new people make is not having an exit plan, which I'm like, why? I just invest for the long term, and it's there for if and when I need it.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. I made the same mistake too when I was a young investor, was to buy something and think I would keep it forever. We always want to have an exit plan in case conditions for that asset change. For example, my very first stock I bought was a company called Diamond Offshore Drilling. As you can tell, they were in the oil business. However, Diamond Offshore Drilling does not exist today as a company. They went out of business. But the stock is still worth something because when they went out of business, their assets were bought by another company that rolled into other companies on and on. Finally, now today, that stuff's all owned by Exxon. So I have shares in Exxon because of that. But that's not automatic. So we want to check our assets at least once a year. Has anything changed fundamental to that industry or that particular company that would make me either want to sell it? Or did it get bought by somebody? I need to contact the new owner and say, hey, I need some shares to, balance this out for myself. This is why we need exit plans. We also need an exit plan if we're going to use that money for a specific purpose, such as you're saving up to a down payment on a house, or you're saving up to pay for some other thing. Great. What amount of money do you need to have and by what time? And when that date gets closer, make sure you're prepared to sell your asset to pay for the thing you want to buy. So exit plans are super important. One of the ways that many investors get absolutely bad returns is by just not paying attention to what they've got and what it's doing. So always look. And if you think you're never going to sell something, that's great. But you're probably not going to find that's not reality for you. So do pay attention.
Thank you very much for that, Mike. I particularly did like the animal one. Well, I think there was a lot of value in all of them. Like listening to the wrong sources cost you a lot of money. Not understanding relationships between your money and your brain can cost you even more money and depression on top. And believing the myths, I'm going to say now, since we did have to, cost you a lot of money. Not having the right exit plan, it sounds like cost you a lot of money. Something I'll have to look at. And yeah, the course, of course, free investing course is down below. Check it out. And if you have any questions when you sign up, it's going to be like an email at the top as well. So email us.